Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to Politics and Debate. Today's topic, inshallah, we're going to be discussing global warming. It's probably one of the scariest issues that we're facing at the moment. Rising sea levels, the ice caps melting, the prospect of many different species of animal becoming extinct. And despite all this, it's not getting any warmer in the UK, it's getting a lot colder. But this is a serious issue that we're facing. And what does Islam say about this? About how we should treat the environment? And if our beloved Imam Zaman, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten his reappearance on the earth, if he was to return today, how would he deal with this serious issue? I'll be asking this and a lot more to my esteemed guest, Dr. Zahra. Assalamu alaikum. How critical is it, Doctor, that the fact that there are world leaders today that deny that global warming is happening right now?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Muhammad wa alihi. Obviously, it is very significant when you have important countries that they pull out of treaties dealing with the issues of global warming, and humanity on this planet is facing grave dangers, consequences of global warming, and the experts have all confirmed the effects of global warming. Unfortunately, there is not much you can do about it when we have important countries, significant countries who pull out of this treaty. The rest of the people need to do their best to address issues of concern in this respect.
And it is a very serious issue, because there are even talks of, if the Earth's temperature goes up to this extent, maybe we should move to Mars. It's a very serious thing.
Well, I mean, this is not an option at the moment, and it won't be for a very long time. I don't know whether it will at all be possible for humans to move to Mars, but it's a completely, I think, for the foreseeable future or for generations to come, that won't be possible as an option to move to get from here. But we really need to do is much more easier it's much easier to address the issues concerning global warming and deal with them here on Earth today. And basically, the different forces, different governments have to come together and do their best, or do whatever it takes, rather, to reduce the effect of global warming, or whatever contributing towards this phenomenon, global warming.
It's almost like a defeatist kind of attitude as well. It's just as if we're saying, there's nothing we can do, let's just find somewhere else to live, when in actual fact prevention is better than cure.
Right.
And there are things that we can do. Now, the religion of Islam, alhamdulillah, it's a complete way of life, and with every aspect, with every kind of issue, Islam has a solution to it. So what does Islam say in regards to the environment and preserving it?
Islam stresses greatly on preserving the environment, and any use of any resources, mineral resources or otherwise, from the environment are declared free for humans to use, for Muslims to use, but provided that they don't go to an extreme in the sense that exhausting it. They say you need to preserve it for the future generations. So not only you need to preserve the environment for yourself, and this has been the case ever since, according to the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams alayhim salam, Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that you need to preserve this environment and the resources, not only for yourself and for your well-being, but also for future generations. that means we need to do even more than just caring about the environment today as long as we're alive. We need to devise policies and have plans so that the environment is preserved and resources are preserved for future generations. 2-3 generations ahead should not be left with nothing.
Yeah.
These are the teachings of Islam. And of course, one of the scholars, the late Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, he has an encyclopedia of work which is for Hausa studies. It's about 160 volumes.
Okay.
And one of the volumes to do with the environment.
Oh wow.
Okay. And that's something which he has done so that it can be taught at Hausa for those who study religious studies and go to seminaries. And the late Sayyid Muhammad Shirazi, being one of the Muslim scholars, he's rather concerned about the environment and the what's happening to it. And to the extent that made him to write this, of course, the book must have been written about 30 years ago. And it's detailed, and it goes into it addresses policies which needs to be taken into account, or the plans which need to be devised so that it helps preserve the environment for our generation and for future generations. So these are the teachings of Islam, and until today, Muslim scholars and Muslim authorities, religious authorities, try to address these issues.
Let's play the devil's advocate for a second here. So yes, the environment is so important. Preserving where we live is so important. But at the end of the day, if we look at the world we live in an industrial world. We live in a world of supply and demand. And, you know, one could argue, for example, the rainforests, they're being cut down every single day, a huge contributing factor to global warming. But the companies will turn around and say, well, we need the space for our cattle to graze, to provide meat. We need the trees for paper. How do we preserve the environment with this industrial world while striking that balance?
There are a number of things. I mean, you've just raised something which has, from different angles, you need to address it. One is you shouldn't touch the rainforests because basically they generate so much oxygen, if you like. And there are so many species, animal species, which need to be preserved. If you cut down, destroy the rainforest, then you destroy the various animal species. Secondly, if you want space for cattle or for wood, for paper and so on, you could do it elsewhere. Why do you? Of course, there are plenty of spaces elsewhere rather than leaving those and coming to destroy the rainforest. Thirdly, we need to address the issue of consumerism, and of course, that is basically this has been created in order for the big companies to make money, so that they keep producing stuff. And selling them so that we keep buying them and so on. And that would be at the detriment at the cost of the environment. For example, one aspect of it, which basically, when we address the issue of consumerism, we address a whole host of issues and practices and habits and culture, if you like. The culture of buying and using and so on should change. It has been changed to the worse. It should go back to the way it used to be. For example, the issue of plastic has been in the news over the last month or so, to the extent that the UK government said that they plan to address the issue over the next few years. Or at least they said this campaigners said that this is far too long. It should be like, instead of 25 years, it should be 25 months, and so on. But beside that issue, so basically we need to change our habits, and we need to change this notion of greed by producers, if you like, and they need to change the practice of consumerism. All of these need to be addressed, and all of these will help eventually, hopefully, in piecemeal, help towards addressing the issue of global warming.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like many of us, we are distracted by this dunya, this temporary life, and we almost think that like, oh, like if I buy this and I buy that, I'm going to be happy. But the reality is like our needs are very simple, and living a simple life is very beautiful, and it's good for the human being. And also as well, you know, going back to what we were saying about the rainforest, like it's just such a tragedy that we are destroying these, let's call them wonders of the world. Like the plants that you find in rainforests, they could potentially cure diseases. The animal species that live there are some of the most beautiful and exotic species you'll find anywhere. And like, these are signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're signs for us to look at and reflect and such. They're not just animals wandering around aimlessly as such. But if we look back at history, if we look at our masters, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam, are there any like particular pieces of advice that they would give to their Shias in regards to helping us, you know, preserve our environment?
Advices against, they go something in the line of, we have it in the Quran, we have it from Ahlul Bayt, in the line of avoiding consumerism. Kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu. Don't go to extreme. Allah has created this for your benefit, for you to eat and drink and enjoy, but don't overdo things. Don't waste food stuff. And whatever, whether it's food stuff or other consumable materials, wastage should be reduced to minimum. And as I said, this is mentioned in the Quran, and it's mentioned by hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Wastage should be reduced to an absolute minimum, and that will help the environment greatly. If you look at the studies that have been carried out about, the analysis has been done about the waste that is produced and the garbage that has been sort of generated by each country. There is a lot of waste in there. These things need to be addressed fully, and this should be done by, you know, again, governments and carefully thought plans, as well as educating the people to this effect, basically, kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu, that they shouldn't waste, they shouldn't buy more than what they want, eventually throwing them away. And these habits need to come back.
And inshallah we can implement these teachings of our masters, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. Thank you once again for that lovely discussion, Dr. Zahra. Up next, my dear brothers and sisters, in Home and Living.